severing his spinal cord. And pretty much they ended up grabbing Booth, getting him out of the barn, taking him up to the porch of the Garrett farm, and he lingered and till he died the next morning. And his last words were, "Useless, useless."
Oh my god, are you serious? You're right.
Yes.
The dude was totally an overactor.
He was fucking just overacting. Like just his last words. Useless. Useless.
He told.
Excuse me.
He says it told his mother, or no, he told the soldier, "Tell my mother I die for my country."
My country. Yeah, it was just like, which country?
Yeah, I mean, just with like all these psychopaths, like they're under the full assumption that they're like doing the right thing for their country. Like they're the liberators, not the assassins.
Yeah. So Booth is dead. Now the others, Heron was arrested right then and there. Powell had pretty much wandered around Washington D.C. because he wasn't from Washington D.C. He wandered around until he made it back to the Stewart House on April 17th, where detectives were questioning Mary Surratt because they were looking for her son. And Powell just comes in all dirty and shit. It was like, the detective stopped and was like, "Who are you?" It was like, "Oh, I'm just a ditch digger. I was hired by Miss Surratt." And Miss Surratt just turned and looked at her and was like, "I don't know him." And they both was like, "But he knows your name." And she's like, "I don't know him." You're like, "You know what? We're arresting you both." So fucking they took them both to jail. George Surratt hid it with his cousin at his farm in Maryland, but he was arrested April 20th. And again, John Surratt had fled to Quebec, where Roman Catholic priests had him. And that September, he boarded a ship to Liverpool, England, staying in the Catholic Church of the Holy Cross there. And he moved further, fearfully throughout Europe until joining the papal. I cannot pronounce it.
Pontifical Zuves.
Yes, in the Papal States. And we'll get to what happened to him later. So they have the conspirators, and again they start arresting. They arrested pretty much everybody. They arrested Louis J. Welchman, who was a boarder at Mrs. Surratt's house. They arrested Booth's brother, Junius, who was in Cincinnati at the time. They arrested the theater owner, John T. Ford, James Punnery, who owned the stable that Booth rented his horse from. John M. Lloyd, the innkeeper who rented Mrs. Surratt's Maryland Tavern, and gave the weapons to Booth and Heron. They arrested Samuel Mudd, Michael O'Loughlin, who was a part of the kidnapping plot to get Lincoln. Edward Spanner, who was the stagehand who was just holding the horse.
Oh my gosh.
They arrested him. And they put him on trial at not a civilian trial, a military tribunal trial. So, which was because again, Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War had suspended the writ of habeas corpus to punish traitors and sympathizers and possible spies. So they figured that since that had been lifted, that the military, and this was done still, the war was still going on, and this needed to be due through a military tribunal. So not a civilian trial. So sitting in the military tribunal is, instead of one judge, you have
it's like a panel of judges.
Panel of judges. Like sitting on this military tribunal is Major General David Hunter, Major General Lew Wallace, Brigadier General Robert Foster, Brigadier Major General Thomas Harris, Brigadier General Alban Howie, Brigadier General August Krause, Colonel James Aiken, Colonel Charles Tompkins, Lieutenant Colonel David Ramsey Cleandon. The prosecution was led by U.S. Army Judge Advocate General Joseph Holland and assisted by Congressman John A. Bingham and Major Henry Lawrence Burkett.
So they rounded up basically anyone and everyone that
Who
was
knew
were even like tangentially connected in any way to the conspirators.
Yeah, if you sold fucking John Wells Booth for pierogi, you were going to prison.
Even the freaking the stagehand that let him into the theater. But I understand, like,
to let him into the theater, a guy who knew who John Wells Booth was, had no idea what he was going to do, who had been in the theater, who had collected his mail from the theater, who fucking held his horse,
right?
Who got hit in the head who could have died that night. Because Booth hit him in the head with his knife handle
as he was escaping, right?
Yeah. So after a 7-week trial and a testimony of 366 witnesses, all the defendants were found guilty.
All of them.
Including
the stagehand. I'm really worried about the
stagehand. Yes, including the stagehand. Mary Surratt, Lewis Powell, David Heron, and George Assarot were sentenced to death by hanging. Samuel Mudd, Samuel Arnold, and Michael O'Loughlin were sentenced to life in prison. Edmund Spangler was sentenced to 6 years. Now, mind you, that Mary Surratt is the first woman to be sentenced to death by the U.S. government at that time. And when they found out about it, 5 of the jurors signed a letter recommending clemency, giving Mary Surratt life in prison, but Andrew Johnson, the new president of the United States, refused to stop the execution. He later claimed he never saw the letters.
No.
He went as far as to say that the plot, the nest where the hornets grew out of her tavern.
Wow.
So on July 7th of that year, 1865, Lewis Powell, David Heron, George Assarot, and Mary Stewart were hanged in the old Arsenal Penitentiary in Washington.
It says one of them died in prison in 1867.
Yeah, Michael O'Loughlin died in prison in 1867. Mudd, Arnold, and Spangler were paroled in 1869 by Johnson, maybe because there was a yellow fever pandemic that was going on in their prison, their penitentiary. Mudd pretty much volunteered to get affected by it so he can help treat it. He was able to do that. It also affected Arnold and Spangler. And they able to recover, even though the prison lost almost a couple of thousand people from that yellow fever. So Johnson, his last act as president, that he pardoned them. Spangler, who died in 1875, always insisted his sole connection to the plot is that Booth asked him to hold his horse.
Wild.
Which, yeah. And I kind of screwed up. Spangler was initially first asked to hold Booth's horse, and then Spangler went to get another stagehand, a lower stagehand. Bless you. This is another stagehand to go hold his horse. He was the one to get hit in the head with the butt of Booth's knife. So John Surratt ended up living in the papacy. He ended up moving around a lot. After early 1866, a friend from the school days recognized him in the papacy and alerted the U.S. government. So Surratt, had moved left to go to Egypt. Well, first he was arrested by the papacy, but he escaped, and then he was finally captured by an agent in the United States in Egypt in 1866. So they ended up sending him back to the United States to stand trial in Washington in 1867. This time it was in the civilian court. So you had a judge, you had a jury. John Surratt had brought 4 witnesses from Elmer, New York, who claimed they had seen him there between April 13th and April 15th of 1865, and 15 others said they saw him or someone who resembled him in Washington or traveling to or from Washington on the day of the assassination. Because of this, the jury was deadlocked and they couldn't reach a verdict. So John Surratt was released. And pretty much this is the same evidence that it hung, pretty much the same evidence that hung his mother. And they couldn't get a conviction.
But it was in a civilian court, not a military.
It's a civilian court, not a military tribunal. Exactly. Yeah.
So, maybe a bit more fair. Whereas I feel like the military tribunal might have been a bit too vindictive and just like out to set an example of the people they caught.
Yeah. So, let's go into the conspiracy theory. God, that took like a while, but this is telling the story. Yeah.
I was actually going to say, you can edit this part out, but do you want to do like a second part to this? Like this sometime this week?
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Let's do this. Instead of this long diatribe, let's get together and record later on. We'll do, and we can make that a longer episode. That could be like an hour or so.
That's what I'm saying, because like we haven't even touched the conspiracies yet.
Yeah, because we're just telling this story and shit. And there's also some other tidbits that had happened afterwards that we want to go into a little hindsight. But yeah, let's reconvene. I will jump on the phone with you.
That's fine. Let me know.
And when we can do this.
I mean, I can record tomorrow night if you're free. I
think tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this tomorrow night, and then we can release it the following night. So it'd be fine. another Friday and Saturday fucking weekend weird.
While it's like fresh in our minds, because I feel like there's a lot to cover on the conspiracy part.
Yeah.
And like now I'm reading about the Baltimore plot, which I guess was like another plot to assassinate Lincoln back in 1861. I kind of want to explore that too.
Yeah, let's we could do that. We could talk about the conspiracy theories. Yeah, that's a perfect idea. That's a whole other Jesus Christ, these long ass episodes.
I know, dude. There's a lot to cover.
Yeah, especially like this is new. Most of this stuff is new to you, so
it is. Yeah, that's right.
All right. So so next episode we will talk about the conspiracies, the conspiracy behind the conspiracy. Was there a little bit further to this conspiracy? It's just like, was a conspiracy in a conspiracy in a conspiracy? It's a riddle wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a tortilla. And we'll talk about the Baltimore plot, and we'll also talk about what had happened to Lincoln after he was shot. He died, but it's a little bit more than that. So join me tomorrow, Ogul.
Yeah. Let me know.
All right, I'll let you know.
I should be free. Yeah, I should be free like 7 or 8 o'clock. Let's record like another hour or so and cover the second part of this. I feel like we'd be rushing through it tonight.
Yeah, it would be, and there's still a lot to it. So, okay, all right. We'll for myself and RedNick and Ogul, we thank you for listening to part 1 of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln on Weekend Weird. We will see you for part 2, probably the next day. So, you stay weird, guys, and because being weird is really cool. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.